Hello, welcome back. Mike from Canavan Wealth. It is Tuesday, June 6th. It's time for Mike Reads the Journal. Except it's not. This is actually my Ghost of Christmas Past. It's actually April 13th. And I knew that I was going to be out of the office this day, so I have been searching for kind of articles that aren't necessarily time sensitive that I wanted to cover so that I could put them up during this time. So let's jump into it. I'm only going to do one article, and I'm not going to cover the markets because I have no idea how they're doing. Although I'm out of the country on vacation, so good chance that they're tanking and causing me stress and heartburn. I hope that's not the case. Anyways, this I think was super interesting, fascinating to me. Everybody knows I like using those words because this is something that I have worried about for years, really since I became a financial advisor. Once I started learning a lot more about, really how investing in the U.S. specifically, but really all over the world works, and that's the prevalence and kind of dominance of index-based investing, where you do not try and pick stocks that are going to do well. You simply buy a large index, and if you say, "Well, I'm always comparing, my investments to the S&P 500. Why don't I just invest in the S&P 500?" And that has led to some massive ETFs typically, but also some mutual funds that do nothing but invest in indexes. There's really no one, there's people that work there that manage it, but no one's picking the stocks in it. And there's lots of problems with that, which I'll talk about. But I want people to understand that this is not an endorsement of index-based investing or me telling you that you should not be, using index-based ETFs or mutual funds. Virtually all my clients, all my portfolios use indexes in some fashion or another. They're not entirely that, but this is, so just understand, this is not me trying to tell you should or should not use them. It's about really the norms that have developed. So let's go back to why index-based investing could become an issue, but this article kind of shows that it's actually gotten better from what we would have thought, which is why I love data and kind of educating yourself on lots of different topics. So index-based investing is this idea that we are just going to buy an index. And to show you that how that would not work if everyone did it, because in order for the market to work right, we need people following individual companies and investing in them when they're doing poorly, and not investing in them when they're doing well, and taking their money out when they're doing poorly, in order for the indexes to work, right? The indexes came out as a way to measure overall market health based on how lots of different companies all conglomerated together. And then we had this idea, well, let's just buy all those companies. We'll do exactly how that's doing. But let's imagine every single person, the only way you could invest is through the S&P 500. You have to either buy the index or not buy it. Well, there are invariably, of the 500 companies in the S&P 500, some that are not doing well, right? That are declining and will eventually leave the index, which is what this article is about. But if all we could do is buy all of them or none of them, they would go up based on the fact that the other companies were most likely doing well, right? Since the market generally trends up, we would expect that the majority of the companies in the S&P 500 would be doing well. And thus we would be buying the index, and these poor performing companies, their stock value would go up despite the fact that they are not doing well. And that's the problem, right? The indexes require, those that are investing based on the indexes require everyone else to do their job and find good and bad companies. Otherwise, the system kind of breaks down. And we saw this for a long time, that whether a company was in or not in an index had a dramatic impact on its price, specifically when it entered and left the index, right? And then I'll kind of come back to another problem with index-based investing that's more kind of political, but not Washington political. It is, and where is it? It's right here. So back in the 90s, when a stock left the S&P 500, it saw an abnormal gain or loss of 7.6%, meaning that it moved that amount when it entered or left the index. That went down in the 2000 and down to 0.8 in the 2010s, and then they have similar data for when it's leaving, but the numbers are very similar. Meaning, stocks kind of rose and fall based on whether they were in the S&P 500. But that has actually gotten better, meaning the market has gotten more efficient. And they attribute that in this study to what they call this mid-cap effect, which, as I read it and kind of interpret it, it's that now we have indexes for like just about everything. So whenever a stock leaves one index, it's most likely just going to enter another one, specifically if it falls out of the S&P 500 on the bottom, because there's really no way to fall out of it on the top. There's nothing above it. It will go from the S&P 500 to the S&P 400, which is a mid-cap index, and effectively stays in an index, which has made the markets more efficient. It does not solve the problem I talked to you about index-based investing, how it kind of relies on the rest of the investors to be doing their jobs in order for those that aren't doing their job to kind of ride on the coattails. And then there was the other problem that I wanted to bring up about index-based investing is who gets to decide what's in the index, right? S&P is for Standard and Poor's. This is a company. They're actually a rating company. They came up with the S&P 500 in the beginning largely just kind of understand what the economy as a whole was doing, how the stock market as a whole was rising or falling. But then it became this index that people invested in. Well, this is just a private company that decides who is in this index, which receives a massive amount of investment, which used to determine 5 to 7% of your stock movement was based on whether you were or were not in the index. And that's a problem, right? If, for example, as the amount of people that invest solely through indexes increases, who gets to decide whether you're in this? Now, this is helped out by this fact that effectively it seems that we now have so many indexes that you're kind of always in one, you kind of belong, but you could imagine that this could get very divisive and political about a company that feels they should be in one index or not in another. The concern that index-based investing is going to have some negative impact on the markets in the future, I certainly have felt that for years. It is not a secret anymore. There are lots of people coming out saying, look, index-based investing was great when it was like 1% of the money coming into the market, but it is dramatically more than that now. This was actually my project when I did my boot camp in fintech. So I did this kind of coding camp. And this is what I studied for that course, which was kind of the impact of index-based investing on the indexes themselves. Really fascinating stuff. And it's kind of blowing up as to the concern over this. A lot of people think that the next major financial crisis, I really don't consider what we went through last year a major financial crisis, unless the bank thing really goes south. Maybe that's happened by the time you're watching this, but will have something to do with the fact that index-based investing has become such a large part of the way that the investment system works. So then you might think, oh, Mike, so you don't do index-based. I already told you lots of my client accounts are in indexes because it is unfortunately one of those things that you have to play the game that is being played at the time. If we were not using index-based investments, I truly do not believe that the returns would be as good. So it is something I keep a very, very keen eye on. And I'm glad to see this, kind of study showing that, at least in some aspects, it is not as bad. It's actually getting worse. So it's actually getting better in some ways. But it doesn't really take the concern that I think a lot of people have around the impact of how we invest these days. All right. Like I said, I'm only going to do this article. Like and subscribe if you want to see similar content. And I will see you for 2 more weeks here as my Ghost of Christmas Past talking to you, because I'm going to be out of the country here for quite a while on a trip with the family, much deserved after my kids graduated and my wife finished her doctorate program. So congratulations to her. I hope this has been informative. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.